Welcome to Sales and Marketing Talk Show. Today we are talking about pricing, and I have Kyle Poyar joining me. Thank you so much, Kyle, for joining. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Good to see you.
Great to have you on the show. And just maybe super shortly about your background. You come from OpenView, but could you open up a little bit? Like what is OpenView? What do you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So OpenView is a venture capital firm investing in expansion stage software companies all around the world. The firm was founded about 15 years ago, and the idea was VCs can and should provide real value to their portfolio companies, but the only way to do that was to build that model from the beginning, and so focus on one kind of company and become experts at kind of helping those companies scale. And then just kind of work hard over time and learn from the portfolio and apply those lessons to new companies. So we've been exclusively in B2B SaaS for 15 years. We've invested in companies like Workfront back in 2007, which sold to Adobe for $1 billion last year. We've invested in Datadog, Expensify, Calendly, a bunch of products that folks are probably familiar with and hopefully use every day. And I've been at OpenView for 5 years now, leading our growth team, where I partner closely with the executive teams on the portfolio around all things revenue growth. And that includes, pricing and packaging, which I know we want to talk about today, and then product-led growth. So OpenView coined the term product-led growth, and that's been a major focus in helping companies, whether they are already bought in or kind of just dipping their toe. How do you leverage product-led growth techniques to scale faster and more efficiently?
Yeah, sounds good. And I think like now today, since we are talking about pricing, a little bit of like packaging of your product, I think for many companies, like when companies are starting, pricing is something that comes kinda in the last place. So figure everything else up and then just put some random price for the product and then start testing things. So maybe to start things off, it will be interesting to learn a bit more like why pricing is so important. Why this is something that companies should use time from their scratch on?
Yeah, I guess it varies in importance over time, and kind of the role it plays in a business, it changes. See, fundamentally, pricing is actually about product market fit. And so while startups are trying to kind of build a motion and prove out the need for the solution, it's not just about finding product market fit, it's about finding product market price fit. And so making sure you're solving a problem that is so acute that folks are actually willing to pay for it, and that's able to fund a large and enduring business. And so the price part of that equation is really critical. And if you build a really great product but don't have a revenue model for it, that's not going to allow you to invest the right customer acquisition dollars to be able to even go after your target customer. And so if you can't figure out the revenue model along with your innovation, that no matter how good the product is, you're not going to be able to build a really healthy business around that product. And so at the beginning, it's about the revenue model and the health of the product. I think over time, it's more about building long-term growth and runway for the business. So being able to accelerate the revenue that you get from new customer cohorts to improve your CAC payback, building in that expansion revenue, and being able to monetize the new products that you're building so that you can fund the product development activities that you have. So it kind of varies in the role it plays in the business as you grow.
Yeah, sounds good, and I think super interesting points there. The pricing of the product, it's something that is like totally new to me. I of course I browse a lot of like SaaS websites and check out the pricing pages, but super interesting to hear today like a little bit deeper on those ones. On every episode of this sales and marketing talk show, I always ask a question from my previous guest to you, and you have the chance to ask the question for my next guest. Typically, I do that one in the end of the episode, but actually today, the question I got from previous guest Pep Laja was super interesting. I would actually like to start things off with that one. And Pep asked about like what are the legit ways of pricing research to determine your pricing, because I think many companies, they just go to Google to find out what competitors are doing. So what are like the main ways to do that?
Yeah, well, and the right techniques will again vary based on the stage of the business. I'll focus more on like early stage techniques that folks can use rather than like the techniques employed by like the Salesforce and Adobe's of the world. In the early days, I think at the starting point, when you're doing discovery calls with customers, and I think every founder is trying to talk to everyone in the market possible, you should better understand the potential value or business case for your product. And that's a great starting point to just understand like how much pain are you solving and how much is that worth from the customer's perspective. It's going to allow you to communicate the value of the product, but also kind of set an upper bound on, all right, what's the maximum I can charge? And hey, actually, what would be really laughable relative to the value? And so you can look at that as, are we improving revenue? Are we saving the company costs? Are we saving them time? Are we reducing risk? How much time are they spending on this today? Who's spending it? And you can really understand the economic value. And my rule of thumb is you want the economic value to be about 10x what your pricing is. So essentially you're capturing 10%. The better you're able to be at proving that economic value to customers over time, making it repeatable, having proof points, I think you can capture more than 10% like as you scale. But in the beginning, 10% is a great place to aim for. So that's a great starting point. So something else when you're interviewing those buyers is understanding their reference products. So what do they spend money on? You might not have a direct competitor that someone's saying, oh, we're going to swap out X software and this is the budget for it. If they are doing that, yeah, you do want to know how much they're paying for that alternative product. But if not, think about what are they comfortable buying? What have they bought before? When they think about buying software, what is the purchasing process that they go through? What kind of approvals do they need to get? How far in advance do they need to plan? Are there thresholds in the budgeting process internally where something goes to be like, we need a CFO approval and we need this like plan for 6-12 months in advance if the price goes above a certain amount? Or how does that really look from the customer's perspective? And I think you'll find really interesting things about the reference products. And so as an example, if you're in the sales tech space, folks might compare you to Salesforce and how much they pay on Salesforce. And that might even be an upper bound of how much they pay for you. But they might also think about a number of other tools that they're using for their business. And I think actually what I've noticed, we've had a number of developer-focused software companies in our portfolio. And when folks charge per user, a lot of times the customer kind of thinks about products like Slack or Atlassian products, which are pretty low price from a per user standpoint. But then from a usage standpoint, that's actually one of the reasons why companies have a better time monetizing is that folks then don't really compare the product to a Slack, they compare it to a Datadog and AWS. You kind of can choose your reference product based on how you set up pricing, which I think is really interesting. And then a final thing that I would just advocate for folks is that when you're in the early stages, it's actually never easier to test pricing. Like it will never be that easy again. And as hard as it might feel like, consider what happens when you have 10, 100, 1,000 times the number of customers. Now all of a sudden a sales team that's all kind of communicating pricing to customers as well. You could actually think about almost every interaction you have from a sales standpoint in the early days as a chance to get pricing feedback and essentially be a pricing research technique. But it's in a live setting where you're seeing whether someone's willing to buy. And you're looking for things like, how do they react when I tell them the price? Is this something that they just don't even ask multiple questions about, just feels like, hey, this is a no-brainer, this is a really easy decision? Is there something they're really digging into and all of a sudden it's like a serious discussion with them? And you can test out even just simple things like, hey, if you get the sense that you're underpriced from those conversations, in the next sales opportunity, try going up 10%, 15%, see what happens. And you might even actually need to go higher than you expect to see when you've crossed the line and actually gone too high. And you're starting to look at when there are a number of buyers who you would think would be a good fit for your product start to tell you, oh, that's too expensive, and kind of shut down the conversation. The nice thing too is when you're in the early stages, folks are a little bit more willing to kind of come back to the table, right? They know that you're an early stage startup. And so if you aim too high initially, it's just a starting point for the conversation. And there are ways to backtrack and still be able to close that customer, even if you start pretty high.
Yeah, and I really think that the like testing part is something that many companies should do even more. And like really, I think what would be like super interesting test for like starting SaaS companies to like, if you are, for example, let's say that you are selling 100 euros or dollars a month products, try to ask 1,000 in the next sales meeting and see what happens. I think that might like surprise people for sure.
Yeah, and there are a number of companies. I know the founder of Segment has actually talked about this a number of times, how they've increased pricing like the 10x, 100x even for certain products compared to where they started, and they just didn't fully realize how much pain they were solving for customers. And it's pretty consistent. I mean, when I look at companies, both in our portfolio and outside of the portfolio, almost everyone starts out much less expensive than where they end up. You know, some of that's like they don't want anything to get in the way of the company buying the product. They know that their initial launch is an MVP, so like some of it certainly makes sense, and I'm not advocating to try to maximize the amount that you get from a customer from day one. But if you've gone 6 months, 12 months without testing and seeing where those bounds are, either you're kind of staying at that low price point for too long.
Yeah, exactly. But then when we think like those different techniques that you just mentioned on the pricing, do you think that companies should basically like combine all of those, go through the like testing, go through comparison products, go through the value the customer are getting, or like how to choose which one would be the most important aspect for starting companies?
Absolutely. I think companies need to do all of it. I mean, the pricing is so fundamental to how you make money as a business. And it can't just be a whiteboarding session with the leadership team to come up with it. Like it requires real research and testing to really feel like you've nailed it. And so I advocate that folks take it seriously. And then even as you're scaling, call it the Series B, Series C, you probably even want to put someone in charge of this pricing research, even if it's just part of their job, and even put together a pricing committee that is cross-functional and meets, monthly or bi-monthly to review that data and their feedback from interactions with customers and make decisions on, okay, what are we hearing from the field? What are we hearing in our win-loss data? And what do we want to be doing for the next quarter?
Yeah, exactly. And then one interesting thing on pricing that you actually mentioned before we went live is usage-based pricing, and that is something that is quite popular now and growing right now. So could you open up a bit on that one? What basically that means? Can you share some examples, and why do you think that's like getting so like well used?
Yeah, and I guess it starts to like get into the history, right, of software pricing. And so when folks think about SaaS, they normally think about the Salesforce model, which has been around for a couple decades now. It's charging an annual fee based license, normally based on the number of users who are logging into software. And where usage-based pricing comes in is it says, hey, for a lot of products, the value doesn't necessarily tie directly to how many people need to log in to the product. And there's better ways to kind of communicate the worth of the product and scale as a business. And so usage-based pricing at the highest level is just thinking about ways to incorporate data on how your customers are interacting with the product. And it's the central core of how you monetize. It can be user-based plus usage-based. There could be a core subscription and add-on fees, or it could even go all the way down to like the Twilio model, or the AWS model, which is pure consumption based, pay as you go, totally flexible for that customer. They can opt into an annual commitment if they want to, but they don't have any requirement to do so. And I see more and more companies starting to adopt elements of usage-based pricing, whether it's dipping their toe in, as I kind of said, even Salesforce is doing that, or going all the way into full usage-based pricing. I think there's a few reasons. First is just businesses with usage-based pricing have, typically have actually a lot healthier revenue models. So if you look at the companies that have gone public in the last few years, 7 of the 9 with the best net retention all have usage-based revenue models, because you kind of have built-in expansion that's organic as your customers are using more of the product. You think about like Twilio, Datadog, Snowflake, Elastic, they all scale kind of naturally after the customers are successful, which is a really healthy way to grow as a business. They also, the revenue is tied to people actually being successful, which means that they're able to build a more customer-focused software company. There's no shelfware in the product. And so from an investor standpoint, that revenue is all really high quality revenue. They're not hiding anything. And so investors in the public market are valuing the revenue of usage-based companies at a 50% premium for enterprise value compared to non-usage-based companies. So this is something that investors look at as a signal for, hey, this is a business that has a lot of long-term growth potential. And then more broadly speaking, I just think about there's changes in the way people are building products and how folks see value in it. So some of the mega trends that we see in software are things like automation, AI, and API. And with none of those are value to customers scaling with how many people are logging into the software. With API products, software is talking to other software. You don't necessarily have an interface that someone logs into in the first place. With automation or AI products, software is doing things that would normally be done manually by people, which saves you expenses, saves you time, and ideally could even fully automate so that you have fewer people that need to use the product. A model where you're charging per user just is not going to capture any of that value. And in fact, your customers might pay you less as they're more successful with the product, which is not the relationship that you want to have a healthy business. And you have no incentive at that point to make the customer more successful. Like if you're going to invest in product capabilities and something might lead to fewer user seats, like what is the incentive to do that as a business? So I think that usage-based models align a lot better with the value of the average software company today. Not every software company, but the average one. And but if folks are just kind of thinking about for the first time how to build a revenue model, I'd really advocate think usage first and then user-based rather than defaulting to user unless there's a major reason why it doesn't work.
Yeah, some great insights there on the usage-based pricing. A lot of new ideas for me as well. You mentioned earlier that at OpenView you are mainly focusing on companies that are doing product-led growth, and I actually did a episode about product-led growth with Bill McKides, ex-CMO of Slack and Zendesk. On that episode, there's a lot of things on product-led growth. So let's not go into that one more detail. But I think one of the main points on product-led growth is really showing the company, showing the people the value of your product, and really growing from there. So when we combine that one to pricing, I think there comes super interesting topic that should companies offer some kind of free plan or some kind of freemium? What do you think on that one, on pricing point of view?
I mean, I'm a big advocate for it personally. I wasn't always that way, right? I started my career in consulting, focusing on pricing and packaging consulting. And so initially I was like, do you really need to offer a free plan? Doesn't it devalue your core product? All of a sudden your free is competing against paid. I had natural skepticism, but to me now the seat that I sit in an OpenView, I see that it's really about try before you buy, and it's appealing to the end user. And so if you kind of zoom out around why product-led growth is a thing, it's the end users are increasingly important constituents in how folks buy software. So you can't just appeal to that C-level stakeholder anymore and be done with it. You actually have to, and there's a big opportunity to get folks that are experiencing the pain point themselves personally and would be core users of your software to be the ones who are going out, trying the product, setting it up, and then advocating for you across the broader organization. And this kind of end user oriented model doesn't really work if you're trying to start the conversation with, oh, let's go do a demo before you can get into the product and let's go charge you a whole lot of money. It's sort of anathema to the concept of product-led growth and being an end user focused company. So free plans are critical of showing that value before capturing the value. And then it forces the companies to have a really amazing initial user experience where that first day, first week, even first like login experience should be something that solves a pain point for the user so that they understand why they want to come back and keep using the product. And I think that what I think is fascinating too is that a lot of companies, they start off with a pretty good free plan, and then over time, it suffers from death from 1,000 cuts. Sales is struggling to hit their revenue goals, or maybe they lost a deal to the free plan because the free plan was good enough. Okay, let's scale back free. And kind of there's no one advocating for free in the organization. And so free ends up being this thing that exists that you have people using, but ends up attracting a lot of non-serious users, hobbyists, very small mom and pop businesses, folks that are not your target customer to begin with. And then folks look at it and go, hey, like, shouldn't we kill this? It's not even attracting people that are going to pay us anything. And I think the reality is that you actually want to lean towards making free too good. And so if you look at like a Slack, for example, they don't put any limits on the number of users that can log into Slack on the free plan. At OpenView, we were on the free plan for, I think, 4 years before we upgraded to paid. And there's a ton of feature-rich value that you can get on the free plan. But then what's really smart is that they have a cap on your message history. So when Slack goes from this place where teams are kind of communicating and it's a nice to have like tool for your communication and kind of employee productivity to, hey, mission critical information about our business lives here. We need access to that information. We need to be able to search through it. That's when Slack becomes something that you absolutely need to pay for. And that's when they monetize because they have the limit on your message history and folks need access to that. And so to me, I like this generous free plan concept and then usage-based compelling events where once it's clear that someone has seen the value, that's when you ask them, hey, this is great. We're gonna, if you want to keep experiencing the product at this level, you're gonna need to pay for it now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think I totally agree on that one. And I actually read your LinkedIn post about the topic that like the main issue with many free plans really is that you're not giving the like real value to people. But I think that is something that companies really should be doing out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even if you think about it from like a user perspective, right? We're all users of software, or like most of us are. If you were to look at a company that has a free product and you look at it like, this is kind of shitty. Like I can't really do anything with this. And especially if you're a developer or someone that actually needs to like implement this software and integrate with other tooling and kind of put real work into it, it's not actually worth your time to even try out the free product. And so if free isn't good enough, you're just kind of negating the entire benefit of free, which is opening up that funnel, getting people to experience the product, kind of using the product as an education or as a marketing tool so that you're engaging with your buyers earlier on than you would. And also you can move them more quickly and in a less competitive process, because if they start using your product, they like it, they might not even ever go and look at alternatives.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing like related to pricing is that, of course, I think many companies are like thinking how should we be pricing our product, but then at the same time, many companies are thinking, should we be showing our prices on the website? And like for sure, if you're like a SaaS company who is like selling everything online. So you want to have people credit cards there, and I think there must be the pricing because no one is buying if they don't know the price. But then there are still like a lot of B2B SaaS companies who are going through like book a demo or have a call with us, and they don't have the prices on the website. So what do you think? Should there always be pricing on the website, or is there any reason why there shouldn't?
I'm too much of an ex-consultant to like say, hey, this should always be the case. There are certainly reasons why companies believe it's in their best interest to not show pricing. A few of them that folks tend to cite are, hey, well, my competitors will know exactly how I'm priced and they'll undercut me on deals. Or, hey, my price might look really expensive because people don't really understand the value and all the things they can do. So I want to be able to show them the product first and have that conversation around their needs and the business case, and then get them into pricing. And then other folks might just say, hey, pricing is kind of complicated. There's multiple inputs that go into it, and it's really hard to simplify all that down into a pricing page. And it's actually just a better experience overall to have a person be able to walk through it with the customer. Like, I get all of those reasons. I think actually even a fourth reason why not to publish it is that once you put pricing out on the website, it gets a lot harder to change it. If your pricing is never public to begin with, then there's no reference point that folks have, and it gives you more of a chance to kind of iterate, experiment before you kind of lock in, hey, this is the core pricing for everyone. But so like those are all valid reasons, and I think that's fair. Why I would advocate still to consider publishing pricing, even if those are true for your business, are that, first off, buyers are looking for that information. They're going to ask other people about it. So there's even software companies like Capiche, which have come out, or Vendor, that are becoming databases for how software companies price. And so if you don't actually own the conversation and own the real estate, someone else will, and they're not necessarily going to communicate the pricing in the way that does you the best, makes you look at it like in the best light, because they can't kind of put price alongside value and use it as a conversion tool with customers. So I guess first of all, your buyer's looking for this information. Do you want them to find it from you or from someone else? I think it also forces you to simplify things and kind of come up with pricing that is customer friendly. It might actually be a problem if pricing is too complex that sales needs to talk to someone, because that will slow down your deal velocity. And so it might actually just be better for your business to keep things a little bit simpler and more value-based. And then if I also think about it, pricing can be a great tool to qualify your buyers. And so, and this, some folks don't have enough leads in the first place and they want to talk to everyone. A number of others suffer from the challenge of they have a lot of people that come to their website, want to talk to them, but would never really be a good fit for the product. And so if you start to put out pricing information, people can opt out and say, oh, actually, I don't know if I'm ready for this. This might not be for me. When your sales team is only having conversations with people that have gone over the hurdle of pricing. And that actually means they're more qualified and ready to buy, and you don't really need to do as much discounting and negotiation, because if pricing is public, it kind of feels like the price is the price. It doesn't feel like I have room to go, get 60, 70, 80% discounts. And so I think actually I'd give a lot of credit to Atlassian. They publish pricing for just about everything on the website, and they have a policy that the price is the price. We offer low affordable pricing for folks, and we don't discount. Like, it's an everyday low price strategy. And so when I look at companies that have public pricing, they actually can speed up the deal cycle and close a higher percentage of their customers as a result. So again, like, while I know it might not be for everyone and there's certainly risk involved, I would advocate for folks, like, when in doubt, push yourself to publish it.
Yeah, some great tips there, and I think there's like a lot of marketers listening to this one who I think we need prices to our website, but then like someone inside the company are saying that no no we cannot do it. So like, I
It's
think
probably
great tips.
sales.
Yeah, might
Yeah.
be, but yeah, some great tips. But then like on the sales perspective, if I think I'm doing sales, I really enjoy the fact that we for example have pricing on our website, even though we are not a B2B SaaS company, we are a service company. But the main reason is one of the reasons you told there, that they are really making sure that most of the leads that are coming in, they are like qualified for the budget, and I don't have to use time for companies where I like would, or they wouldn't have any money to use. So it's just like saving time from the sales. I think that's the best part there.
Yep, absolutely. And what I think is also fascinating is when you look at Google Analytics, for a lot of companies, the pricing page might be the second or third most visited page on the website. And so to me, that's a signal that like, hey, buyers are searching for this. Buyers are looking for this information. I also like personally love to get analytics on it, like put a hot jar sort of on that page, look at where there's drop off, where people seem to be confused. And also put lead forms on there, because if it's going to be the second or third most visited page and it's a page visited by qualified buyers, like that's probably the most important page where you want folks to contact you.
Yeah, exactly. Great comment. But hey, then Kyle, you have the chance to ask question from my next guest, and I'm joined by Audrey Agahan, and we are discussing about like creating a content marketing strategy. So what do you think? What should I be asking from Audrey? Audrey is as well working with B2B SaaS companies like you guys.
My question would be, what's the role of the company brand versus the personal brand in a content marketing strategy? And so I guess the rationale for that is that you see, and I mean, I guess this conversation can even count as an example, folks respond really well when things come from an individual and it feels more fresh, authentic, real versus like branded content. Like who wants to read branded content? You want to read from people that you trust and respect. But that's really challenging for companies to embrace, because what if those people on their team leave? And hey, we want folks to affiliate this with our brand. And we're kind of creating a brand as an organization. I think that's something that a lot of folks struggle with, and would love to hear Audrey's thoughts.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for that one. And then lastly, if people want to follow your ideas on B2B SaaS growth, about pricing, about packaging, about everything, what's the best place to follow you?
You definitely follow me on LinkedIn. I publish pretty regularly there. And then subscribe to my Substack. It's called Growth Unhinged. And you can just find it at kylepoyar.substack.com.
Great. But hey, thank you so much for joining me, Kyle. Thank you for everyone listening. And if you like the episode, feel free to share it with your colleagues who are interested in pricing. And have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.